let's just sew whatever. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lauren and we are going to do our best to make this bag. I messed up a lot during this pattern, and that is because I made so many changes. It is not the pattern's fault. One of the tips that I give at the middle of the video, and you'll probably hear my revelation when I figure it out, is not to top stitch the sides when you're done sewing. You want to make sure that you top stitch after you've got it all on and just go around the top and the sides. So I added this gusset here, not very well as you can see, so that I could add connectors there and so it wouldn't open up as wide. I'm really happy with the gusset part and my math on that. I think we ended up using 21 inches of zipper tape, and this piece is cut to 6 inches by 2 inches and then just kind of cut it at a taper. I cut my lining. I didn't cut my lining too small. I sewed it with too small of a seam allowance, so that was one issue. And that's why the bottom of my bag isn't sitting quite right. So completely my fault. I might sell this bag at a discount, or heck, maybe I'll keep it for myself. But that's what the inside looks like. I edited the slit pocket there. I cut the panel, this front panel, down at the dash line, and then about 3 inches from the top folded it over so that it would be a full slit pocket. But overall, I must say I'm really happy with the look of the bag, and I will absolutely be making another one with my better adjustments. One thing that I think would make this bag easier is if the panels weren't all together, if the bottom was separate. That would make it a little easier, but I probably won't make adjustments like that because there's no way for me to give those to you. So that's it. I hope you enjoy kind of learning with me as we go, and yeah, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is going to make sure that I have everything that I need hardware-wise. So I've got purse feet, triangle strap connectors, or strap anchors. I'm using a 1/2 inch snap hook to add like a little key finder inside the bag. And now I'm gonna prep my zipper. So this is zipper tape from myhandmadespace.com. The link is down below. I'm gonna go ahead and use 3 zipper pulls, 1 for the inner zippered pocket and 2 for the top of the bag. So let me go ahead and grab my zipper genie. You'd think I'd be prepared before I start a video, but no, it's me. So My Handmade Space has these really great zipper packs. So they come in every color she offers: rose gold, gold, black nickel, rainbow, silver, on a pink zipper tape. Super cute. And, you know, if you're making a handbag and you're not quite sure what color you need of pink, that's a great way to kind of get everything, and then you'll have some for later too. So I'm going to go ahead and add my zipper pulls. What I do is I just kind of separate the two, put them on at a 45-degree angle. And I'm gonna put these on in opposite directions, so that way when I add it to the top of the bag, it can unzip in opposite directions. So that's another way getting the zipper sampler kind of makes sense and makes your life a little easier, because then you're not cutting down tape, you're not buying a lot of extra for this one particular bag. I don't know. I don't always use zipper by the yard, but I do enjoy kind of the creativity that it lends. I know some people like to use a little shrimp fork, or something similar to add it. And to that I say, whatever works for you is awesome with me. Okay. So there is the zipper all lined up. Hopefully you can see that. I'd kind of like it a little bit closer. Let me see if I can get it on there a little bit better. There we go. Maybe. And then these zipper pulls, I can't say that I love these zipper pulls. They don't seem as sturdy as I'd like, but you can also add a cute little tassel clip or something like that inside of there. You know what? I'm not happy with the way that looks. That could be a lot better. Let me try this. Let me put this down near the end. There we go. That might work a little bit better. And you really want to make sure that you, there we go. Oh yeah. I don't know how much different that is, but it seems different, so I'm happy. And then I'm going to put this last zipper pull on the end, and this is for my inner zippered pocket, so I'm not really worried about which direction it's going in comparison to the others. And I just slide that off my machine. So now I've got my zipper tape ready, and I'm going to see how large I actually need this to be. Oh, that fell down. Let's be honest, what's new? So I am modifying the zipper quite a bit than the original pattern calls for. I'm adding a 6-inch zipper tab so that the bag doesn't open up so wide, and I'm going to attempt to add 3/4 inch D-ring connector to the side of the bag. So let me go ahead and grab that tab, and I'll see how long of a zipper I'm gonna need. So of course I'm gonna cut it a few inches longer than I really need it because I'd rather be safe than sorry. But that seems about right. And that is 23 inches. Yep. And then I've got enough for a zippered pocket and basically very minimal waste. So that's pretty nice. Whoops. And I think we are ready to get started on making the bag. The first thing I'm going to sew are my straps, just because my bobbin is full and I'll get them out of the way. So I'm starting with a piece of 1/2 inch double-sided tape, which, oops, I messed up. There we go. There we go. And what I do is I center that over my vinyl. Use non-stick scissors to cut. And then I peel that off. Miss the trash can. What's new? And then for vinyl straps, you don't necessarily want to fold that all the way into the center, just kind of right up against the line. Just because when you fold it over, there's so much bulk that you want it to have a little bit of room to flatten out. So hopefully you can see, I can still see my center line, but it's not touching right against it. It's like a hair, maybe 1/8 of an inch away. So that way when I fold it over like that, you can see there's room for your fabric to kind of smush down. And then if you wanted to, you could use another piece of 1/2-inch tape or even clip it together. This mine was really thick. But I love the texture on it, and the blush pink is just so pretty. The next thing that I'm going to do is add my purse feet and baste, not baste stitch because I mean it's already basted on there, but I'm going to add some accent stitching along the bottom panel. This is in the pattern and I've honestly never done it because I'm like, but I really like the way it looked. Like I've seen some bags that have fancy stitching along the bottom and I'm like, you know what, I do want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold. I know this is not how the pattern says to do it at all, but I don't necessarily like sewing from the wrong side. So I'm just going to kind of make some creases, some fold lines. I'm going to sew 1/2 inch away from them. Or just kind of follow the edge of my foot basically onto the stabilizer. And it seems kind of silly, actually. I'll do it this way. I'll just do it this way and see how it turns out. And I'm just going to follow the edge. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Okay, I don't hate it. Yay. Oh my gosh. I just love the way this white thread looks on this blush pink. It's so cool. I almost went with a black accent stitching and I was like, no, too much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark where I want the purse feet. And then I'm gonna add a little more accent stitching, just because. So I'm gonna go 1.5 inches from the side and from my like the top of my accent stitching. Yeah, that looks good. So 1.5 from the side and the top of my accent stitching. Yep, still feeling it. Oh, I like that. I probably could add 6 total, but oh well. Now I'm gonna be really precise. Not really, I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm gonna find where my 5th purse foot should go. And right there is where it should go. So I'm gonna add a stitch line down the center. Again, this is totally not necessary. It's just for fun. Just kind of playing around. This is the bottom of the bag, so it's not like it's going to be seen a whole lot. Why do those seem completely not even? Because they're not. I don't know what happened there. But I'm going to come in an inch from that stitch line. Yeah. I am completely making this up as I go. Just FYI. So again, 1 inch, and this is like where I'm going to be adding purse feet on these lines. And I feel like I haven't gotten to be creative with a bag in a while, so it's kind of why I'm doing this. I just want to have fun. Alright, so now I'm going to go an inch from my stitch line. Boom. An inch. Boom. 1 inch. Boom. 1 inch. Boom. And then what is this? Yeah. Okay, great. So now my 5 first foot marks have been made, and I'm going to insert them. And I'm not going to be cutting through my stitches. I'm just going to make my line right next to it, because going through it would be silly. Don't do that. Okay. So I've got my slits marked out. I'm going to grab my hardware. Whoops. And my washers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you want to make sure that you're inserting the purse foot the same direction as your slit. Yes, Ben, you do. I'm telling you. And then make sure they're in all the way. And then I like to give them a little bit of a twist so they're in the opposite direction of the hole, just because that creates a little more tension on it. And separate them and add your washer. And then because this pattern has foam going over top the purse feet, you're not going to really feel them from the lining side. So if you wanted to, you could add a little piece of duct tape or some glue. I may add some glue because someone messaged me. They're like, one of the purse feet like ripped out of my bag. I was like, oh no, it's not what I want to hear. But I'm glad to hear feedback at all, because you can't grow if you never get any feedback. So what's that? And now we're going to attach the vinyl accent to our main panels. So I'm going to fold these in half and make a little snip at the top. So that way when we add our zipper, we can center it. I used Woven Fuse and Decoville Light on my main panels. But this is also a knit stretchy fabric, so that's why I added a little extra interfacing. And then this is going to get attached 1/2 inch from the bottom. So I've already made my marks and it just gets lined up 1/2 inch. Boom, boom. So let me go ahead and add some double-sided tape like the pattern suggests. And I have not added my strap connectors because I'm using my triangle strap anchors for this bag. So I feel like, what? Wait a minute. That is why. So adding some double-sided tape there and there. So I'm going to tape down the sides first, and then I'll tape down the center. That glue was like the dumbest thing I've ever done. I thought it would make sense, but it did not. Okay. So lining that up with a 1/2 inch mark. Lining this up with the 1/2 inch mark. Kind of making sure it's all nice and flat. And removing the double-sided tape from the center. Sticking that down. And then I'm going to top stitch along the vinyl accent. And you could add 2 rows of stitching if you'd like. I'm just going to stick with the one. Go really slow. Make sure that your vinyl doesn't shift. And you could do this through your foam. However, I think that it kind of makes your foam buckle at that point since you're adding that stitch line and it's making the vinyl or the foam a little bit thinner in that spot. So it's not something I could say I would recommend. Yeah, goodbye. Clue. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. So dumb. Oh, well, it comes off. And I'm using triangle strap anchors on this bag, so that's why I've not added those connectors just yet. I want to make sure I add them through my foam, so that's why I'm waiting on that. Okay. Super pretty. Yeah. Glue is pretty much dry. So now we'll work on the second main panel. Cut my 3 pieces of double-sided tape, 1/2 inch right outside that edge, and then a longer piece in the center. If your machine is not a fan of double-sided tape, make sure that you're leaving it out of the seam allowances or where your stitch lines are going to be. That'll be a big help. Okay, lining it up with the edge, the 1/2 inch mark, and the same with this side. Kind of flattening that, peeling off the tape, flattening that. Then my one complaint about this bag is that all together it's kind of bulky, so that I almost wish that there was a bottom panel that gets sewn separately on, just so you could control how long the bag gets. But the shape in the end is just so cute. I love it. Do a little zoom in for you. So around those curves, I'm just going kind of one stitch at a time, except there, using the hand turning knob as needed, just to kind of add one or two. Voila. Now I'm ready to baste on the main panel foam, which I may or may not have cut a little bigger than needed, but I feel like that's not the end of the world because we can trim down the excess. So I'm just gonna clip. Yep, it looks like it's a little long some places. I'm just gonna kind of even it out. If you have a heat press, you could probably very, very carefully press this to your bag to fuse it in place. I'm not too worried about it. Sometimes fusible foam can wrinkle, so I'm just gonna clip it together and baste it all around the edge. So you can see here there's some excess. I'll just trim that off later. Okay, so I decided I want to add one more accent stitch through the foam along the bottom of the bag just to help hold things in place. So I'm just going to go around the outer edge one more time. Watch me run out of bottom thread, whatever. Yes, oh my gosh, that's so cute. I don't think I've ever spent so much time focusing on the bottom of a bag until this moment. Okay. There we go. I think that just sits a little bit nicer, helps everything stay in place. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna kind of focus on my zipper and my zipper tabs because that's something I'm changing about the bag and I want it to be a decent length. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay, just kidding about adding the zipper tabs at the moment because I forgot I need to add my strap anchors. So I'm going to add them, let's see, 2 inches from the top of the bag. And then I'll find my center mark. Maybe, hello? Bueller? Anyone? Oh, or let's see. This is 10 inches, so I'll add it 3 inches from, yeah, that looks perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna add it 3 inches from the top of this little accent piece. There's the center. Grab my marking pencil. And 5 is the center, so I'm gonna add it at the 1. And for these, you want to mark really close in that slit. Make sure you're going in the right direction. Okay, 3 inches and 1 inches, so that's the 9. Oh, can't see any of that. Alrighty then. Will this work? Probably not. Oh, kind of. Guess I probably could have done this on the back. Hello. I might be out. Let's try a pen. There we go. I can see that. Great. All right. So now that I can see my markings, we will mark our slits. And you don't want to make your slits way too big. And then you can kind of bend your washers, or your prongs, I should say. Make sure the triangle bit is pointing down. You can go the other way if you want, but I think they look best this way. Push your prongs through. And then you can add a little bit of Decaville Heavy or Peltex or whatever you'd like through the other side. I think that there's plenty of stability with the foam, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. And then I like to bend them down. And then you could add a little bit of glue here as well, if you'd like. Just kind of reposition those prongs. Poke them through. And then repeat with the other side. Oh, that looks so classy. All right, so centering this over 10 inches. Yep, yep, yep. And then 1 inch from the side of that. Line that up. Nine inches. Okay, all my markings are made. See, it goes much faster the second time. Takes practice just like everything else. I'm worried these are a little bit low, but I'm not really taking into account the seam allowances, so it should be fine. One thing I hate about foam is it's hard to find the hole you've made, but you get there eventually. Okay, there we go. And make sure you've pulled all of your prongs through all the way, and then you can bend them. There we go. Nailed it. Looks great. So maybe sewing's faster. I don't know. These look cool though. All right. So I'm gonna add my nameplate really quick while I've got my seam ripper out. Okay, both of those triangles are pointing down. Good. I got worried for a second. Okay, that's the center of my bag. Sorry for the back of my head being in the way. Seam ripper. Ooh, that's a lot of layers. Oh, I think this is where my double-sided tape is. Perfect. Oh yeah, that's where that double-sided tape is, for sure. Okay. And then make sure it's centered. Looks like it's a little high on one side, so what you can do is just kind of widen your seam, like your little slit, just a little bit, and then push it down lower, and that'll help. Okay, there we go. Bellissima. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this in half one more time to find those center markings again, just because I'm worried when we go to add our zipper, it's not gonna be easy to find. Go. All right, so now I'm gonna work on the lining and my zipper panel tabs thing. Okay, so I've warmed up my waterproof canvas, and I'm going to fold the top edge over and then over again so that there's no raw edge along the top. I'll use clips to help hold that in place. Alternatively, you could use Like if you're using a thinner vinyl, you could add a little binding to the top to add a pop of contrast into the lining. I thought about doing that with this, but it would have just been way too thick. Okay, and then to make sure that there are no raw edges showing for this pocket, I'm going to lay this across the bottom as even as possible. That looks good. I'm going to clip it in place. And then I'm going to sew across here. And then when you flip it up, you have no raw edges showing in your bag, and then you can sew down the center and you've got a divided slip pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and steam this with my iron and sew down the center and baste it in place. And when I iron waterproof canvas, I make sure I use a lot of steam. So I'm just going to baste it really quick. And you definitely don't have to sew down the center if you don't want to. You could add like a few pen pockets or whatnot. I'm just going to fold this in half, make a top center snip, because you never know. And then I'm going to sew down the center, starting from the bottom. I'm going to go out at each edge just to reinforce. You could also add some rivets. That would look really cute. Just never do for some reason, but they always look so cute. Okay. And then I have this really fun label that I designed. I sell these now as well. It says, "I'm handcrafted, take care of me." And I'm gonna baste that into the lining somewhere. I'm not sure where yet. I probably should have put it here, but I didn't think about it. But how cute would that be? So when you look down inside, your bag is just like, hey, don't forget, I'm handcrafted, so make sure you take care of me. Okay, thanks, appreciate it. All right, so now we're going to add the zipper pocket with the vinyl facing. This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna go ahead and iron my zipper really quick and mark my centers for the zipper pocket. Okay, I've got my zipper pocket marked out and ready to go. I don't usually measure where I'm putting the zipper. I just kind of eyeball it, but in case you're wondering, the zipper pocket is about 4 inches from the top of the bag. It might be different in the pattern, but this feels right. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna do, well, I'm gonna move it up just slightly. Here we go. 2 parallel lines, stitch length at 4. And I always like to make sure that I backstitch at the beginning and end of each row. Okay, right sides were together, just checking. I'm going to take a pair of scissors, cut into it. This is how I do my zipper pockets currently. I know there are fancier methods out there and I've been meaning to try them, but I'm just like, I mean, this works for me. And then I'm going to turn this through and steam it with my iron. And if these little triangles poke out on the sides for you, don't worry about it, just poke them back in. If they resist, tell them what's up. Tell them to stop. Okay. Cute. And I mean, you could honestly choose not to add a zipper. You could just sew this facing around and make it a slip pocket. I'm kind of tempted to do that. Do I want to do that? Huh. Like, I'm just trying to think. This pink zipper tape doesn't match perfectly, so I kind of don't, I don't know. I'm not going to add it. I don't want it. You're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do. So I'm going to do it that way. Do I want to add this here then? Ooh, I might. I'm tempted. Although that hangs a little low. It's kind of silly. It really should be up here. Just worried it's going to add too much bulk. No, it'll go up there. Okay. So I'm going to sew around this zipper facing. I'm going to use little 1/2-inch double-sided tape to hold it in place. And if you guys watched the video of me cutting and interfacing this bag, you'll know that this isn't a custom order, finally, for once. So I'm kind of having fun. So if this tutorial seems a little discombobulated, I mean it is, but that's my brain. So you're welcome. And I'm just having some fun sewing. A little therapeutic. So I'm lining up the facing with the bag lining, and I'm going to sew around the inside of the box and then the outside of the box. And you definitely want to make sure you're catching your lining fabric as you're doing that. Otherwise, it's kind of like, what was the point? And if you're not sure whether you've caught it or not, you should be able to kind of feel it. And then backstitch at the start and the beginning. And then I do not take my needle off completely. I just kind of jump over. Because you can leave your thread on the back and just thread burn this part here. Kind of like a jump stitch and embroidery. Thread burning, make sure you don't burn your vinyl. There we go. And then like I said, I honestly keep this little jump stitch back here and you're good to go. And then I'm going to sew the back of my pocket on, and we're almost done with the lining. Oh yeah. That's really cute. And this is going to become a turning hole, but not necessarily a birthing hole. So I'm just going to fold that down and press using lots of steam. So now we're going to go ahead and get started on those zipper tabs. I'm going to get started on figuring out the zipper tabs. We've got our lining pieces ready to go. I forgot to show that I basted this in place. I just kind of aligned it over the overlay. I don't know. We'll see if it works. I'm a little worried it's going to add too much bulk for when I'm top stitching my zipper on, but we'll see how it goes. I am going to start by adding my zipper tabs to one side of the zipper. So I'm going to lay my zipper teeth face down. And you can baste that in place or you can just clip it in place. I'm just going to clip. And then I'm going to take my lining piece face down as well. So zipper teeth are facing down. My lining is right sides together with that as well. And then I'm going to sew using about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I'm not going to sew through my lining because I have it in my head how I want to put it together, and this will be easier. And that's my story. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to top stitch that. And I just want to make sure that this fits nicely. So I'll probably need to taper this piece, but that's okay. I'll trim it off in a minute. Just going to go around the outside edge. Okay. I feel pretty good about that. Well, no, I don't. I tried to put my zipper teeth. So I'm going to mark out the center of my zipper. And I'm not going to cut it just because I worry it'll start to fray if I do. So I'm just going to add a little marking to the center of the zipper. And I'm going to clip that to the center of my bag. Okay, so there's that. So my zipper tab right now is about 1 inch longer than I'd like it to be. And that's with the zipper centered. So I think I'm going to want to cut off 1 inch of my zipper tape. Or is it 2 inches? Because each side. I'm going to cut off 2 inches of my zipper tape. And then add the other part of my zipper. Or other part of my zipper tabs. This will alter where my center is, but that is okay. That's why I didn't snip it, because I knew it was going to change. So, yeah, that seems right. So again, vinyl face up, zipper teeth face down, lining piece right sides together, so wrong side up, facing you, 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I'm only top stitching through the lining and the seam. So here's what it looks like from the wrong side, and we're sewing over that seam. I'm going to find the new center of my zipper, which should have moved about 2 inches. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, that fits exactly the way I'd hoped. And what's kind of cool and not planned is this overlay almost kind of meets up with those zipper tabs. I'm excited. And the marking pencil that I used has already started to fade, so I won't get it mixed up. So I'm going to go ahead and work on adding my D-rings for my crossbody strap. So I'm going to get my double-sided tape. Clip it in the center. Or tape it in the center. I mean, my bad. I'm not clipping anything. Folding long raw edges in towards the center. And I went with 3/4 of an inch for this because I had a feeling that 1/2 an inch would just be way too small. I'm going to fold the top down a little more than an inch and then fold the bottom up to meet. I may end up trimming this down to 4 inches, but we'll see. No, I love that actually, just the way it is. Yay, yay. Okay, folding the long raw edges up to the center and then down in the center. And for this, since we're not folding it in half again, you don't need to worry about leaving a little gap in between. You can butt those vinyl pieces up right next to each other. Butt them up. And then I'm going to grab one of my smaller pieces of double-sided tape, just the 1/4 inch wide. And I'm going to use that to kind of tape it in place. So I'm not sewing it through my lining. One, because of the way we're going to construct this, you're going to need that lining piece free. And two, because I don't want to. So I'm going to center this over my zipper, but like right under where my top stitching is. Because we're going to have to taper that just slightly. We might be able to do it when we sew it together. We'll see how it turns out. So just right below the top stitching, and I'm going to sew that on. Make sure your lining is out of the way. I'll probably add some rivets to this as well. I'm just using a little scrap piece of leather to put over my D-ring so that the walking foot doesn't scratch it up. Back stitches. Bada boom, bada bing. Yeah, and then you can add 1 or 2 rivets to that connector. I'll probably add 2 because it is a crossbody strap and they're a little low, so I'd hate for anything to pull off or whatever. I am loving the way that looks. Okay, so again, kind of centering that over my zipper tape right below the top stitching. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and really quick add probably just one rivet right at the top, and then we'll work on adding our zipper to the bag. All right, so I'm going to start with one side of the bag, and I'm laying my zipper face down, centered. So line up your center marking with your center snip, clip into place. We're probably going to need to move our zipper pulls as we go. And I kind of like to lay it just right outside my original basting stitch on the exterior panel. Ooh, okay. I'm having to pull those stitches out a little bit. Kind of forgot how I wanted to attach that. I'm kind of doing it like a drop-in lining for, let's say, the Belle baby bag or something like that. Because I don't want... Well, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters because you're not going to see that edge. So I'll just hope for the best. We'll try this. We'll hope for the best. So I guess I could have probably top stitched through the lining because you don't see any raw edges on that part. So, okay, no worries. I'll cut those nice and even then. Oh, this one is great. Some people might like to use double-sided tape for this part since it's a curved edge. I don't know that that ever would really help me, but you're welcome to do what works for you. Yeah, I probably should have tapered that first. We'll just eyeball it. Okay, so now I'm ready to sew this on. Well, I'm technically just basting it. Hey, look at that bobbin. Thank you. Okay. So using a stitch length of 5, I'm going to walk around the outside of the bag. sew around, not walk around. It's a walking foot, so that's why I got confused. Moving the tray, there we go. Watch out for your hardware. And you want to kind of push your zipper tape into that seam, especially in the curves. It's really easy to mess this up. Make sure you're using number 5 tape. I'm getting close to the pulls, so I'm just gonna redirect them past my zipper, or past the sewing machine foot, and continue on my journey. So it looks like I caught everything on the outside edge except on this side. So I'm just going to re-sew it from this way really quick. Hey, look at that. All good. Trim this down. I'll go ahead and taper that really quick. Okay, so that's what we're looking at so far. Then you're going to grab one of your lining pieces. I'm going to make mine the zipper pocket towards the back, and you'll line up the bottoms and the centers and then clip the rest. I think if you're making this bag to the pattern specifications, you'll want to add your you'll want to have added your accordion or your gusset pieces already, so make sure you keep in mind to follow the directions where that says to if you're adding them. And I'm clipping this from the other side, so my clips are facing down, so that way when I flip it over, I can just come in a little ways past my basting stitch. For the zipper, not the foam. Perfect fit. Okay, so now when I flip this over, I can see that my second line of stitching is where I want to come in just a little bit. So I'm going to switch my stitch length down to a 4.5 because this isn't technically a basting stitch at this point. It's a construction stitch. And I'm just going to come in a little ways from my original stitch line and work my way up the bag. I think I can feel that my teeth are nearby. Nope, that's my D-ring. No worries, just watch out for that. Okay, my teeth are over here, or the pulls. My bad. The zipper pulls. I'm not sure I liked that noise. I may have sewn through something I shouldn't have. hold on. No, it feels okay. The curves are hard with your zipper, I will admit. Okay. So I'm going to leave my needle inside the fabric, and I'm just going to unzip my holes. Come on now. Making sure my teeth are laying flat along that curve. Okay. So now is the moment of truth when we turn this bad boy. And just push along your curve. If you feel like you've got too much foam within your seam allowance, you can trim down your seam allowance. Oh, okay. I don't think I messed up anywhere. Maybe I did. Did I? What's going on there? What's going on there? I did mess up. Yay! So I caught part of my zipper tape from the lining. So I'm just going to clip this very carefully. And let it resituate. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. It's like my zipper tape was just kind of folded within that seam when I sewed it up. So now it's sitting a little better. So I'm going to add a little bit of fray check to this part. Add a little bit of glue. And then when we top stitch, I'll be able to secure that. Okay, got my E600 nearby. So I'm gonna give it a little zip just to make sure that it comes across the teeth nice. And it does. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press this very carefully from the lining side, make sure everything is pressed nicely, and then we're going to top stitch. Now we begin the top stitching. I'm going to fold my key fob, my key holder thingy mabobber down. We want to top stitch through that. I've got my lining nicely pressed. We're going to start from the accent piece down here, back stitch, stitch length of 4.5 or 5, whatever suits your fancy. We're just gonna go nice and slow on the outside edge, kind of folding that seam, rolling it in between our fingers so everything lays nice and flat. And keep rolling, rolling, rolling. Stop. All right. Pulling that key grabber down. And I'm just going to add a little back stitch over that. Again, just make sure you're rolling that lining out of the way. Okay. So now we have one side nicely top stitched. There's what it looks like from the other side, from the lining side. So you can see as I was rolling that, I was making sure everything was lined up nicely. It looks great. This is where I want to add my little I'm handcrafted, take care of me. I want to put it like right here. So I'll just clip it for now. I was going to say I could baste it in place, but I don't feel like it. All right, so let's find the other center. I can see the ghost of a mark right there. So I'm going to find my center snip, line that up with the ghost, and clip it to the top. And then you'll see the bag pretty much start to come together. We're in the home stretch. I'm clipping it from the front of the zipper this time, so not with my back panel. Make sure your zipper pulls are out of the way. You don't want to sew through it and break a needle. That would be terrible. Okay. And everything lines up nicely, so I'm really excited about that. I can math, yay! Who would have thunk? All right, trimming all of my excess thread there. Doop, 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 doop. Okay. I'm almost tempted to like clip this here so it doesn't move around on me. There we go. Stay in place. So stitch length of 5 because we're just basting this time around the outside edge. also, I'm really sorry if my head gets in the way. I'm still trying to find a really good angle for filming. Okay, let me zoom in really quick for you guys on this part. All right, now we're zoomed in. So hopefully this will help you guys see how I'm sewing those curves. See how it's kind of bunching up here? I'm just pulling it apart with my fingers to kind of flatten it. Can come through. Make sure your needle is in your fabric. There we go. So now I'm having trouble because my D-ring is in the way, so I'm just gonna maneuver that out of the way for a minute. There we go. Lining's getting a little bunchy. Voila! So now comes the really fun part of adding the other side of the lining. So I'm gonna line up starting with the bottom, clip from the side with the foam, so that we can see our basting stitch. And again, if you were supposed to add the accordion wings, make sure you're doing that prior to attaching. And then when you clip, make sure that they stay out of the way. You might need to pin them down to help you, but you definitely don't want to sew through them the wrong way. I mean, that's kind of the standard for most things. Okay. Gonna pull my zipper pulls out of the way. Oh, that's not where I want to be. Okay. I don't want to leave it unzipped because it's going to be harder for me to know what my zipper tape is doing, so I'm just going to keep them past a curve and kind of hope for the best here. There we go. Top stitching this other side, the more I'm thinking about it, the harder it's probably going to be, but that's okay. Maybe I'll use my cylinder arm for a second. Doubt it, but maybe. So my zipper teeth kind of want to get bunched up in this corner here, so I'm just making sure that they're pressed into the bag before I clip it all together. So there's what we're looking at. Kind of flatten everything out as best as you can. Then we're going to switch to a stitch length of 4.5 because we're not basting anymore. This is a construction stitch. We're going to start at the bottom and coming in about 1/8 of an inch from our existing stitch line, we're going to sew around the entire outside. Deep breath. So I'm feeling my zipper tape with my fingers and massaging them out of the way. So this should feel pretty flat. There shouldn't be any obstructions. And leave my needle in as I maneuver my way around. I will say this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've made this bag. So if it seems like I'm not having many issues, that would be why. I know the first time I made this bag, it was a bit of a mess, but I do really like this pattern, and I kind of forgot how much I enjoy it, because for the look of the bag, the construction is pretty easy. There's very minimal binding, and even that wouldn't be super necessary depending on what materials you use. Sorry if my head's in the way. I thought for a second I'd run out of bobbin. I'm not gonna lie, I freaked out. All right. So now comes the super fun, really hard part. I'm just gonna double check that looks good. You could trim down this part. I mean, yeah, you could like trim your foam down. But do not trim your zipper. Do not trim your zipper. It could fray and ruin your whole bag down the road. So don't trim your zipper. Okay, so now we're gonna flip the lining so that it's now wrong sides together with the other side of the bag. Great. Awesome. Wow. I'll leave that clipped. And we're going to unzip our zipper. Ooh, that looks so good. I'm handcrafted. Take care of me. Just double check that I've caught everything. Nothing looks weird or wonky. And this is kind of a good time to just double check that everything looks good, and it does. I am loving the side panels. Like, it opens far enough. You can still get into it. All your pockets are going to be accessible. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to think about how I want to do this. And this is one reason I wish that the bottom panel was separate. And I know that there's a way you could absolutely do that, but let's see how I want to do this. I'm gonna brainstorm. Okay, so after some brainstorming, I'm realizing there's really no way I can top stitch the entire other side like I did this side. So next time, what I would do is I would leave off top stitching until both the lining and the exteriors were together, and then I would just kind of top stitch down past, so starting here, boom, up and around, boom, up and around. Because this part of your bag really doesn't need top stitching. Yes, it looks nice, but it's not super necessary. So I think what I'm gonna try and do is top stitch down here, up here, and then down on that side again. But my zipper closes up really nicely, so I'm very happy about that. It looks good. There isn't too much wonk, and the shape looks nice. So let us go ahead. Yeah, because I can top stitch from the lining. So I'll flip it back out and top stitch that way. Oh, I thought I heard something fall off and I freaked out for a second. I think it's just noisy hardware. All right. So I've got it flipped back from the lining side. Kind of roll it, press it if you need to, and then I'm going to start on the side panel here. So like I said, this is where I would start if I were top stitching the bag. Stitch length of 5. And then just roll that seam, pull your zipper out. Work it section by section, nice and slow. So rolling that seam, pulling my zipper teeth out. And this is another reason you don't want to cut that tape, because all that pulling could kind of fray and dislodge, and then maybe 2 months later someone emails you and they're like, hey, my zipper's fraying and it fell out, and you're like, well, I spent forever on that bag and now I'm heartbroken. Ask me how I know. So leave your needle in, work it section by section. And then across here. There was a method to my madness earlier when I did not top stitch that lining. I had a feeling. So yeah, 10 out of 10 will make this bag again using the method I just used. right. Go ahead and wonderful. All right, so now we're gonna sew our lining together. The bottom of the lining. Half-inch seam allowance. I think this is where that lining pocket comes in handy. Because now I think what we need to do is turn it through this opening. Probably should have reviewed the pattern first. It's fine. So let me unclip my snap hook. Oh, no. I should have pulled my lining through here first and like birthed it through the bottom of the bag and then sewed up the lining through this pocket. That might be in the pattern instructions. I'm not sure. Let me just do that. Let me just seam rip this really quick. I'm human, guys. It's fine. All right. Yeah, that's much better. I feel silly. So pushing it all the way out. Well, no. Lining together because we got to do something. All right. So I'm going to push my exterior out of the way for this part. Let's try something. Yeah. So I'm going to sew. No, I don't think I can. Never mind. Pull the bottom of our lining through the bottom of the zipper pocket we left open. Man, this bag has been through it. So I didn't undo all of my stitching because I knew I would want to see, or I would want to have parts of it together to make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to sew quite a ways past my original stitch line. This poor bag. Little section by little section. now I can push all that back inside. Push the lining and the exterior pieces together because we're now sewing up the very bottom of our bag. So push all this out. You should have just the raw edges of your corners left open. Like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all of this out together, nice and flat, smushing all of my seams flat. Oh, it looks like my lining is a little shorter than I need it to be now. I'm just going to pull that open. There we go. It's okay. Things happen. Ay, ay, ay. What a mess. There we go. So that should be nice and centered. Open up your gusset. Pinch it closed. Push that flat. Still need to open that up a little bit more. This is because I messed up sewing the lining. I'll definitely make another one of this bag and do a better tutorial, but you can still learn a lot from this, I think. I know I did. Probably going to have to do the same thing with the other side of the bag. So if you're thinking, well, now things aren't going to be even, it'll work out. It's okay. I hope. All right, pushing this flat if I can. I feel like this is what I had an issue with last time too. Because ideally your lining should be smaller than the exterior of your bag. So it doesn't make sense to do it this way in my head. Okay. Alright, I'm going to push this right side out just so I can make sure things are lining up nicely at least. So I feel like it's not. Go back, go back. Oh no, it does. It's just not easy to put the smaller lining, you know, into the big exterior, so silly. Yeah, the bag sits really nicely otherwise. I'm just having issues with that bottom, so hold on, gonna brainstorm. That's what this is, we're learning together. I'm so sorry, you guys. I messed up the orientation, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to see some of those things, so I'm so sorry. I promise I'll make another tutorial for this bag eventually. So let me tell you what I've done to kind of correct how I've messed up. I added some snips to either side here, so that way when I turn the bag, I know where to line it up. It is going to be a bit smaller, which is not my intention. So if anything, we've learned something from this. And that is, altering doesn't always work. No worries though. Okay. So I've got my snips. I can line them up. Again, it's just not easy to do this. Like, your lining should ideally be smaller, so you're gonna have some issues getting everything correct. Okay, this feels good. I've got my center snips together, clipped, clipped. Everything feels like it's pushed the right way. And I'm gonna use quite a large seam allowance for this part because I wanna make sure I catch it all. So I'm not sure if you can see how this is kind of bunching up together. So I wanna make sure it's as flat as possible before I start to sew it. So there we go. And I'm going to set my stitch length to a 4, back stitch, go forward, back stitch, oh, okay, the whole time I had no bobbin. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. I promise I'm not getting mad. Just hard work. Okay, well at least everything's kind of held in place now by perforation. So I've got to come in a little bit further than my last line of stitching. I'm going to add one more row stitching in towards the seam allowance. And then trim off the excess here. Gonna use my thread, lighter. Okay, and then you just want to make sure that you've caught all your seams. Poke out your corners. Ah, okay. It sits pretty nicely, I'm not gonna lie. I've caught all my seams. When you look down in there, you really can't see that it's an open seam, especially once you stick things in there. If you're using fabrics that will fray over time, definitely use some binding on that seam. It's gonna be necessary. All right, so let's do this again for the other side. I made some snips. To make sure I line up neatly. Oof. What is happening with that lining, man? Okay. So making those snips really helped. I can see where I want to line up the exterior pieces. Lining should sit a little bit nicer. I'm just gonna cut this off. It's gonna come off later anyway. Okay, and clip. Okay, yes, that sits very nicely. Clip together. Let's see how this side fits together. Huzzah! It's going okay. I think I need to trim that down even more. Yeesh. Again, this was probably because I used way too much of a seam allowance when I sewed this seam. So, okay, we've got it sitting nicely now, I think. Yes. Yes. Make sure you move past that foam and straighten out your vinyl. Nice and pretty. Bag making is hard. All right, flatten that nicely. You can kind of check from the outer edge that everything's sitting well. Checking from my exterior that everything is caught within that seam, and it is. So I'm going to do that second line of stitching right next to it within the seam allowance. Okay, cut all that off. Okay, if I add binding, I will do that later. But now we're ready to put our straps on and call it a day. Push those corners in as best as you can. Oh, I gotta sew my lining pocket shut. Push that pocket lining in. Okay, so I'm gonna zip it up with my zipper at the top. Oh yeah. So it's a little crooked, but not too terrible. And I do like the zipper tab and the placement of my strap connector, or my crossbody strap connector, I should say. I'm really happy with that. So I'm gonna feed my handle through these anchors. Just gonna clip them in place and then I'll rivet them on later. Just so we can see the finished. Oh yeah, that handle size is super cute. Okay, so here is the handbag all completed. I've got my straps riveted on. Here's what that side panel looks like. So thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed watching me struggle, be sure to, again, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below letting me know if you'd be interested in seeing a different tutorial on this bag, one where I've actually got my crap together and figured out. But I hope you enjoyed. If you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that button, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!